Mega Varnin, mother fluffers, and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you have clicked on this video, you are likely one of two kinds of people. You are either person one, you totally agree with the title, and you would like to hear my points on the topic and maybe share some thoughts of your own. Or you're person two, you're so triggered by the title and that I would say that this game's graphics are not complete arse, and you've just come here to justify why you're right and I'm wrong. And either way, welcome aboard. To those of you that have followed this channel for a little while now, you'll know that I am an avid fan of the Lord of the Rings franchise, the Tolkien Legendarium, but most specifically, Lord of the Rings Online. There are many reasons why this game has had a chokehold on me, and many of which would be far too much to put into video format right now, but we can discuss one topic that is rather controversial. The graphics. Yep, I played this game because I enjoy the graphics. What more do you want from me, honestly? All jokes aside, many of you, like me, are getting into your very late 20s. Because of this, we have seen a number of graphical changes to fidelity and style over the years, and not all of them have been particularly fruitful. I'm looking at you, Death Stranding. I would actually argue that over my many years of being a gamer, some of my fondest memories in these virtual worlds have actually come from a very specific period in time, and that is the 2000s. Now I get it, before you stop me and say, Josh, whoa, isn't this just nostalgia talking? And to that, I say no, it's not. And the reason being is because I've played a lot, and I mean a lot, of newer titles, and many of them have one thing in common. Actually, two things. They are very pretty, but they just lack soul. It's kind of like dating a cheerleader. I'm incredibly sorry for the one female that watches this channel who may or may not be a cheerleader. Someone actually said something to me a few years ago that has stuck with me all this time about modern gaming and modern graphics, and it's that we gain the ability to perceive more textures, but we lose the ability to focus on the key moments. The point here is the reason why early 2000s graphical limitations felt so magical is because every single moment that ever mattered, every focus point the developers wanted you to see, is clear as day. You never felt like you missed what your eyes are being intentionally guided to. There was nothing fluffing it up, so to speak. Now, in order to bring this back and ground this back to LOTRO, as that's of course what we're here to talk about, I feel like Lord of the Rings Online is a shining example of mid to late 2000s magic. And you're going to hear that term a lot in this video. Yes, of course, to address the obvious, there are graphical limitations within this game, but if graphics were truly such a deal breaker and all that mattered was photorealism, then outside of, say, art style, Nintendo would have shut down a long time ago. There are so many areas in Lord of the Rings Online that I find myself genuinely having to stop and take in the scenery around me. This could be something as simple as the first time you come across the Forsaken Inn amidst the Lone Lands, and perhaps you just sit down in the inn amongst the fire and take things in, or perhaps maybe you're first entering the ravines that wind down into Rivendell, or I don't know, maybe you've created an elf or a dwarf and you've started in Ered Luin. Then if that's the case, you're really screwed, because those mountain ranges and the snow, it's gorgeous. LOTRO has no real flashy animations, bloom, lens flare filters, and honestly, I'm totally fine with that. And I'm fine with it having a more muted and grounded fantasy tone, as it really does fit what's going on in the world around you. Middle-earth, whilst absolutely gorgeous, is very much an ugly wolf in a fluffy sheep's clothing. And what I mean by that is, outside of the beauties of the Shire and the safety of Breetown lies a very sinister time for Middle-earth. The world as you know it is pretty much full of impending darkness happening right on your very doorstep, and everything that you perceive to be full of joy and happiness isn't quite that. The gloomy tone of LOTRO, I genuinely feel, would struggle actually to be replicated in the newer engines, as the 2000s graphical magic, as we refer to it, just sets off the world so well. In fact, if we are talking about early to mid 2000s perfection here, then let's just go one step further and reference the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy. Highly regarded as one of, if not the best film trilogy ever made, for good reason. But there were no high-end renders or ultra-fancy CGI in these films that required the latest graphical technology. In fact, I'd actually argue that some of the weaker moments in the trilogy was when they actually strayed away from some of the more practical effects. The way that they achieved what they did with the technical limitations they had in those times in many ways is what I perceive LOTRO to be doing exactly the same. Your game can have all of the particle effects, high-res textures, a cat on the desk, so you're just here to stay. You're just part of the video now. I'm not really sure that people just want to see a cat tail, you know? What's up, dudes? Post-edit Josh here. If you've got this far in the video, thank you very much for sticking with me, and thank you to all of you that have supported me on Patreon and via YouTube membership. You guys really do help keep the dream alive. If you want to gain access to some of the behind the scenes stuff, post-edit stuff, community bits, then I'll leave all the links down below. Patreon you can support from just £1, and YouTube membership I think is around £3 to £4. But it's not expected, but for those of you that do support, I appreciate you so much. Enjoy the rest of the video. Your game can have all of the particle effects, high-res textures, ray tracing, and all of the crap that people use these days, but if at its very, very core, it's nothing but an empty shell, then no one's going to play it. If you give Lord of the Rings Online a try beyond what is advertised visually on the launcher or on Steam, then I can assure you that you'll be drawn so far into a beautifully woven world around you and the storylines of the people that you had no idea that you would care about this much, that honestly, nothing else will really matter outside of that. What you once perceived as flaws will soon turn into charm when it comes to talking about the graphics itself. The way that I personally view LOTRO above anything else is that this game is a masterpiece in open world, massively multiplayer storytelling. And it just so happens to be that it's set in a world that I have loved and I've adored for years. And then aside from that, the graphics are just bolted on as a bonus. I mean, honestly, if you've sat and you've read the books, then Lord of the Rings Online will honestly feel like virtual reality to you. So in an attempt to put some of the comments to rest about the graphics sucking, I simply say, you suck. Appreciate you watching, and getting to the end of this video. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like rating and subscribing for more. Take care.